stimulating, because if a fluffy bunny comes in and they don't know what we're doing and they ask a question, we might be like, that's a good idea, or that's kind of cool. So what's more important is the maturity of coming in and knowing when not to disrupt someone else's ritual, know when to roll with it, not to say you're doing it all wrong. And just sort of have that basic decorum is more important. We kind of are the opposite of research. We have a lot of UPG, or unsubstantiated personal gnosis, which is basically stuff that wasn't written down. And in our group, the stuff that wasn't written down that comes to us, either because it's just never been in this situation before. You know what? We didn't have the kind of roads we had 1,000 years ago. We didn't need a goddess of road trips, Asphaltia, 1,000 years ago. But you know, today in America, hell yeah, we need that. So, and the other thing is, you know, we can have closed rituals, and if we're just like, you know what, we don't want any seekers. We know what kind of energy we want to contain. Then we'll just have a closed ritual. So it's very practical, saying, okay, yeah, we can have seekers, or no. Research is just not an issue, except to say you didn't do it like was written down, therefore you're wrong. That's really the only problem.
Well, the short answer is we exclude them in the first place. That's sort of part of the screening process. The longer answer is we do have tests, as I mentioned before, and we expect to be able to actually do what you're taught, and that's done periodically, like maybe once a month, once every couple months. And it's like a 2-year process, and it's a lot of research, there's a lot of figuring out what's going on in the world. But, you know, sometimes, you know, people do get past, and they're obviously not trying, and there can be a vote of no confidence. It gets to the point where no one in the order wants to teach you anymore, then that's coming back. We don't want them wasting our time, we don't want to waste their time, so to speak. But don't get me wrong, I mean, when people come in, it's a matter of, we have to tell them, don't believe us, prove it for yourself. It's our job to give you the tools, to tell you, let you show that, look, we're not just, you know, anybody can come up with something wacky on the internet, and we've seen lots of it. So we go, okay, this is what we've figured out over the last 20 years. Here's the same tools that we use. Here are the same tools, what do you come up with? When someone has an experience, we sit there and go, okay, we sit there and go, I had experience. I go, okay, don't tell any more. Where we're looking, what we're looking at, and we'll have 5 or 10 people all go through and do the blind test. Everybody says they're done, and everybody explains what they saw, what they observed, whether it be a spell or an effect or something else like that. You know, it's okay to have bravado, but you gotta be able to back it up. So that's sort of where we're coming from. So fluffy bunnies do not flourish in that kind of environment because you call them out. And it's very easy to find out they're full of it.
Well, because AEF is open and public, we welcome anyone. We don't care who you are. You can come to the ritual if you're a fluff bunny. What's going to end up happening are one of 3 things. 1, you're going to weed yourself out. You're going to end up going, I'm in over my head. These guys are insane. They talk like they know what they're talking about. You'll find a better path, whatever fits you best. Another thing is, people with these fluff bunnies will keep coming. They're thick enough that they don't get it. We have a couple of them. And another thing that'll happen is, and they'll just come and just still be a fluff bunny, and they'll just annoy us, and
they're happy that you talk.
They're happy, and they're like, okay, I'll absorb through like a sponge. Yeah, right. And then the other thing that's going to happen is, a lot of times the fluff bunnies will actually pick up our behavior. We model the behavior. We encourage people to go, oh, well, you're interested in that? Here's a book. Wait, why don't we just do this? Here's 5 books. Or here's a great website. Or I had this, I had that, and we'll start an argument from it. And they'll either join in or they won't. We are known for just having good parties. We have fluff bunnies who come for the party. Again, we are a celebratory organization. We're cool with you no matter what. You're going to find your way either in or out. And it is what it is. We don't care. Just don't be stupid. Because you're going to get picked on.
So, I was at the first Pagan panel. I've been coming to Pagan panels for 20 years. I've been a Discordian, oh gods, yes, I'm old. I've been a Discordian for almost 30 years. And I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to judge a Discordian who doesn't know what they're doing. I usually just look in the mirror and I say, well, that's another fine mess you got me into. don't know how you could be a Discordian and know much less. I mean, because if you knew, I mean, the only thing you could do, I mean, I'm having enough trouble figuring out Discordianism having read the Principia about 7,000 times and thought about it a whole lot. If you just want to go around being like, I'm a Discordian and you have no idea what you're doing, you're probably doing it right. Go with it. I'm fine with that. Go right ahead.
Okay. Next question. Having just discussed the fluffy bunny, the willfully ignorant, there is now the issue of seasoned, well-read elders who disagree with one another. For thousands of years, Abrahamic faiths of various denominations have fought and argued with one another, and the pagan community, though not hijacking dragons and flying them into wizards' towers, is not without conflict either. We've all heard the term witch wars and so forth. How does your tradition regard other neo-pagan traditions with different viewpoints, even ones that you disagree with?
Well, for better or for worse, there's a lot of the heathen community that just kind of writes off other neo-pagans entirely, and just sort of says, because they do X, Y, and Z, they mix deities, they practice cultural appropriation, this, that, and other thing, they make bad weird, I don't want that on me, I don't want anything to do with them. Well, obviously, I'm not down with that. I enjoy talking to other people who have different ways of going about things, even different ways of dealing with the Norse deities. But certainly there's definitely an element in heathenry of we feel very uncomfortable with what some other traditions do. That doesn't mean we won't talk to you or hang out with you, that just means we won't be there at your rituals. And we hope that it's the same for if you want to come to our rituals. By all means hang out, be our friends, but play by our rules when you're with us. So I would say that the heathens who do interact with the larger neo-pagan community, even with traditions that we have next to nothing in common or even opposite goals with, we still, we recognize that our differences are still smaller than the fact that we're a very, very tiny, tiny, tiny minority religion in a much larger world. And so myself and many other heathens will play nice with neo-pagans, so to speak.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it all boils down to one word, and that's respect. Be the people who are doing things other than I do, neo-pagan or Christian or Buddhist or whatever. I think that everyone has a right to do their own thing in their own way. I personally would not do animal sacrifices because I get my meat in the supermarket.
That's where it grows.
Yes. But just stay away from my animals, and and also treat your animals with respect. Again, I think the whole key to the majority of life is respecting others.
Well, going the other way for a second, when I go to rituals that don't quite jive with me, I was a Dianic Wiccan for a while, actually in undergrad, and it just, it started to feel wrong, like the more, completely talking about my Dianic circle, it was all about the feminine, it was all about the goddess, and I started feeling like I had a very masculine side, and it just like wasn't welcome, and that my patron deity who was masculine just wasn't welcome. And I was just like uncomfortable with that, and I decided I don't want to put myself in a situation where that's happening. Not Annie's group, of course, but there are some Norse kindreds where I feel weird because just a whole part of me is just not welcome because either I do UPG instead of lore, and so I just, again, kind of weed yourself out, just be like, you know what, you don't want me here, I don't want to be here either. The biggest thing we do probably that pisses other people off is, again, relying on UPG and making stuff up ourselves and not inherently saying what we do is better or worse than like the old ways, the true ways, the reconstructed ways. It's just different. Somebody's snickering over there. And I was at Free Spirit, and I somehow ended up sharing a dinner with this one woman who is a Blue Star. It's a type of British traditional Wicca, and she just was like infuriated by the fact that we kind of made it up and went by instinct and said, And it was funny, we had the funniest discussion. She's just like, I don't get it, why? And I'm just like, well, we try to include, and she just came back with like, rah, rah, rah. And I have to admit, I was feeling very mellow. So it took me a very long time to pick up on the fact that like she wasn't trying to have a discussion, she was just being a bitch. So again, it comes down to respect. And you know what, if you want to come to us, be open-minded. Say, all right, there's more things out there than maybe I'm coming in with. But at the same time, I'm not going to go to Annie's Kindred and be like, if you guys don't do my UPG having to do with Frigga, if you don't acknowledge that, then you're like bad people. You're just, you guys.
Well, how I end up dealing with other traditions, generally we avoid them. But, to be completely honest, we're so misunderstood anyway that no one really misses us anyway. We're very secretive, and that's by the nature of who we are. But we do strongly encourage people to understand what other people are talking about. It's very easy to become very elitist if you're all in your own little group. Part of the reason I actually run a magical convention called Crucible for the last 10 years. Part of the main reason why I formed it was because I realized that I went through a lot growing up in learning how to do magic and all the different traditions, from everything from Wicca to Norse traditions, you name it. And that was my studying, so I became relatively well-rounded, but a lot of people that I trained were not. They knew Omnimancy and that was it, and they couldn't understand why everybody else wasn't doing the way things we were doing it. And so it really became important to me that they understood why people do what they do. So you have Crucible, people hate things that they do not understand. And so what's the best way for them to understand it is to educate them, and you gotta trick them into it. So, make a magic convention. Magic convention where you have everything under the sun that's completely eclectic. It's not just a Wiccan one, it's not just, OTO or Druidry or you name it, or things you've never even heard of. Everybody gets a chance to get your voice. So you go there for one particular speaker that you are really rah, rah, rah about, and you stay and listen to everybody else. Now maybe you agree with them, maybe you don't. But now you're not acting from ignorance. Now at least you know something a little bit more what you're talking about. You don't know everything, but it's enough for you to get curious and ask questions. And that's really the big difference, is that, we're misunderstood because we don't view deity in the same way as a lot of people do. We interact with magic and how other people do their magic very, very differently. We try to understand why people do the magic the way they do it and understand why you shouldn't necessarily step on their worldview per se, because in a lot of respects is who they are.
I think you guys are misunderstood because you're weird.
See, they deal with weird, we're just weird. Now, we're not going to go where you are. Yes, exactly. So, that's kind of how we handle it. And most of the time, most of the elders that I end up speaking with, usually, like I said, we kind of come in through the back. We sort of go, okay, look, we're not going to try to go through normal ways. Like, this is what we're about. Let me show you what I'm talking about. They go, ooh, wow, that's neat. And then they start playing around with it. And then they gain a sort of respect for what we do, even though we're not coming from their perspective. And then we sort of trickle down from there, and that's how we mostly got the reputation more than anything else. But so we're not taking it the standard road that everybody else seems to take.
Well, within ADF, our thing is, which war is a personal issue? Leave it at the door. Really, we don't care. We are perfectly open. We are meant to be accessible. We want to have everybody there. We have the biggest parties. Our average ritual is 20 to 30 people, right? We don't blacklist. We take people who have been blacklisted in. We really don't care who you are. We have Catholics come to our rituals. We have people who don't even say they're pagan at all, just showing up. We have people who are of multiple faiths, and we really don't care. We're there to celebrate, to have a party. That's what the Druidry thing is. It's the educated party, in a cool way.
And every single one of us on the panel has been to God.
Thank you. That's the other thing. Can I get a show of hands? Who in here has been to an ADF ritual? I believe it's just, well, we've got about 60%.
So who's been a member of ADF?
Who's been a member? National member. Wow. Yeah. Okay. We got a huge group of people. I love your card. Thank you. That's the membership card. They actually send you little cards from National, all this stuff. Basically, the only way you can get kicked out of an ADF ritual or out of an ADF grove is to literally break a law, like as in manslaughter, murder, blood sacrifice, because, you know, like seriously.
And they challenge you to do it.
And then, oh, please, absolutely, do it, go for it. Just don't do it in ritual. If you do it, we're cool with you. Fine, just promise you're not going to do it again. We want to be accessible. We have over 150 people on our mailing list at the moment, and we've pared that down. In order to get off the mailing list, you have to ask, right? And we really don't care who you are. We're equal opportunity offenders. So our big thing with the witch wars and the different viewpoints and stuff, we really don't care. Most people in ADF belong to other groups, not just Druidry. We have people in ADF who are Blue Star, who are multiple different versions of Wiccan. We have a couple people over here, some goofballs. We don't care who you are.
Technically, I'm not a couple of people. I just wear a very large shirt.
Oh, that's what it is. I'm sorry, it's double smiles. You know, it just messed me up.
Yellow flower.
It's all about truth.
Flower power.
Exactly.
Go for it, man.
So in Discordianism, when we find someone with whom we have a serious problem, we find a heathen, we find a Norse pagan, and we say,
We're like the hitmen.
do you know what that dude over there said about your hammer? You know, the Principia Discordia talks a little bit about disagreement. We have a saying from one of the founders of Discordianism, Lady Mal. Everyone I know who is right agrees with me. But in all seriousness, in terms of disagreements and in terms of having troubles with other faiths, Discordianism believes, first off, that in a great amount of self-determination, to the point where Discordianism believes that every Discordian can declare themselves to be a pope. Not only that, Discordians can declare other people to be popes. So, you're all popes, you're all Discordian popes, we're all the same religion, we have nothing to argue about.
Raise your hand if you're a pope.
Yes, but you have to pay for it yourself.
The hand?
Or,
I have to pay for the hand myself?
A plaque.
those are the subgenius. I'm not talking
J.R.
about
Bob
that.
Dobbs.
Yes, he would like your money and or your hand.
Okay.
Next question, number 5. All right. It's a college pagan club. Let's hear it already. How does your tradition view, regard, enjoy, abuse, add on to, and overall flip upside down sex?
Hillary and I were talking before this. We were. Hold on.
Please go on.
No, what? What? Please go
So Hillary and I were talking before about how some of these questions we kind of just want to say NA and then move on. Honestly, in heathenry, what happens between consenting adults, sure, fine, whatever, that's absolutely okay with us. I will at this point say that a pretty high proportion of heathens are in like 2-parent households with children. Which I think is just a reflection of the fact that we're really into community and raising the next generation and this, that, and the other thing, and that's kind of, you know, tangentially related to sexuality, so there, I got to put that in. Oh, and since I still have a little bit more time, I should just mention that it's not that heathens are, like, lore obsessed and we hate UPG. We respect UPG, it's just, you know, it has its place. We really, really, really hate when you have an idea and then you say, this is what the Vikings did. No. That's just disrespecting the ancestors. But if you want to do something and say, hey, I got this great idea for something I want to do today and I just invented it, then we're like, cool, do your own thing, man, that's great.
And if the Vikings were here, this is what they do today.
Does it count if it's the Vikings on the History Channel? I love you.
Okay, as far as sex, I think I already mentioned basically how we feel about it. But I actually once at it wasn't a gathering, I was doing wholesale buying at the time, and I met this woman who did fantastic clothes, and she said she was a Wiccan, but she hated all gays, because anyone knows that Wicca is a fertility ritual. And a man and a man and a woman cannot create children. No, but you can create other stuff. Luckily, she was the only one, and I didn't buy any clothes from her because I figured she had so much hate in her. But she was the only one I ever met that felt that way.
So apparently I got infamous for a lecture a few years ago saying that there exists sex with gods, and that I happen to have sex with the gods because I happen to be married to one. So there's like a weird taboo there. I actually wrote a blog post, which you can access through our website. You read it?
It says,
Yeah, somebody read it? I did. You guys can let me know.
Submit more questions. She wants to hear.
I know.
50 Shades of Green?
50 Shades of Green, no. It's actually called Ask a Shaman. So if you send me a question, I will answer. But so far nobody sent me a question. Aside from sex with gods, from lovely Ashley. Hey, you made me talk about it. So there is that. That kind of involved quite a bit of flipping. I won't get into the details because I wrote that up. So there's that. I wish it went without saying that we don't give a shit about orientation. But one thing we do, and for me, again, being like raised Dianic, I have this like backlash now. I have a real aversion to gender roles. I really liked ADF because when I started going to the Grove, there was a lot of lesbians, and the senior Drew is kind of masculine, and she had the minister's wife who was her husband. And so there wasn't, like, gender just wasn't an issue. I was running a ritual for Monanon, and I mentioned it to a Blue Star Wiccan. He's like, oh, who's your priestess? And I'm like, it never occurred to me that A, I was a female using a masculine god, and B, that it would require some sort of gender balance. And in our Grove, we have a lot of people, I don't want to say gender queer, gender fuck, just like fuck gender. That's good. And we do a lot of, because everybody except me in our Grove is also part of a Blue Star tradition Wiccan group called Torchlight, but they're also like very experimental, especially when it comes to gendered. It's like, okay, instead of saying this is the priest, this is the priestess, this is the masculine, this is the feminine, it could be like, you know, the active or the passive, and should it be more about ritual roles and not whether you have a pussy or a wang. Thanks for that, Pat, by the
You're
way.
very welcome. Thank you for actually using those words.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I actually said wang or vagina.
Yeah, but pussy was funnier.
No, it works better in that order. I think if you go wang vagina, it does this like.
That's all about
It's
that.
kind of fun.
Pussy wang is a good name for a band.
But pussy.
A gender fuck, basically.
They actually did something that my priest went to a voodoo ritual and actually drew down the goddess. And he said that it was marvelous for him because he actually knew what it was like to be a woman. And I think that if more people could do that, that would be great.
I drew down Kali and found out what it was like to not have enough arms. It was really weird. And I couldn't put on enough black eye makeup. She just kept going like around and around and around. I'm like, okay. Not enough arms.
Okay. Short answer, we don't care. Longer answer, we don't care if they're like straight, bi, gay, poly, whatever. It really has nothing to do with what we do. There are no gender roles in what we do. We do not even do feminine energy versus masculine energy. It's not, has nothing to do with what we do. There are a few like rules within the group that, you know, while people that do have sometimes a tendency dating within the group, if you're a teacher and they're a student, you're not allowed to be the teacher anymore, you have to get somebody else to teach them, you know. Which is basically means like, hey, we're gonna teach them, because I have to deal with this. You know, so I mean, that kind of thing goes. We don't really care about people's religion one way or the other, as long as they're not being preachy about it, whatever. So it really doesn't really come up.
Or go down.
That's it. I mean, it does get problematic when you get a poly situation going, and then there's like no teachers. That annoys me. Because like, I gotta teach everybody. So, other than that, but that's annoying, it's not taboos or anything like that.
So yeah, my wife is the senior druid, and her husband is, well, Bob, he cooks the chili. He's the chili bringer, really.
The sacred chili.
Hey, great food. That being said, as long as it's between consenting adults, we really don't care what you do. We've had BDSM rituals without the blood sacrifice. We don't even try and ask you to fall into gender normative roles. We really don't care what you are, to the point that, well, about 7 years ago, we had a Beltane where we had to separate into day and night, and we couldn't do it. We are that anti. We had some people on the day side, some people on the night side, and then there were people like me who were just sitting on the line. I said, screw this, we're not even picking. Basically, we don't care. Whatever you do, whatever, we're open. Just don't be stupid.
That's really hard to do when it comes to sex, actually.
Exactly. I mean, really. Try it once. Hey, it worked.
Use a condom, you know.
You just don't be stupid.
You know a little sign saying don't be stupid.
Here's your sign.
For my next trick, I'll need a volunteer. If you can please have sex with the young man in glasses back there.
Dude, that's my brother.
Mood music or something?
When I get that I'd like to be specific, and I'd like to give an actual serious Orthodox Discordian answer. And so I'm going to use the Orthodox Discordian numbering system and say that sex is nobody's business but the 5 people involved.
Nicely said.
Back to you, sir.
Back to regular scheduled program.
Okay.
And then?
So, next question. Thanks to Hollywood, television, and evangelical churches, there is a lot of confusion and connotations about black magic and even demonology with paganism. We've all probably heard of Jack Chick tracts and things like that. This isn't helped by the fact that left-hand paths do exist, and that there are people who actually do believe that they summon demons. How does your tradition view issues such as deliberate magical harm and responding to magical attack? Do you believe that there are situations where it is okay to get dirty?
Well, when it comes to magic and heathenry, there's actually a really big disconnect. I would say that the great majority of heathens just simply don't practice magic, save or spade, however you want to call it. They just don't get behind this concept of manipulating energy using, you know, enigmatic means. And I would say there's even a not small proportion who just don't feel that anyone doing this manipulation of energy is on the up and up. I mean, this is a tradition that in one of our heroes in the sagas goes and steals some stuff from the sky, and then he's walking away, and then he's sort of like, wait, no, that's dishonorable. We should go burn the house down so everyone knows that we did it. Like, there's a distastefulness in heathenry about using magic that no one knows about, but that's a lot of what magic is, doing charms and things like that that are meant to be hidden. Now, when it comes to like left-hand path and stuff like that in heathenry, I actually turned to my friend Rob, who does Brauchrei, which is a Pennsylvania Dutch form of healing that uses runes and other Germanic things. And he talks about how there's blessing magic and cursing magic, but it is the same. If you are cursing a ringworm, you know, you are blessing the person with a ringworm, but then it is a curse for that ringworm. So,
Which is actually a fungus.
well,
Sorry.
it's still an organism. It is.
Are you still
What
cursing?
about
And you're
knitting
still
poles?
cursing. I'm sorry.
What about knitting poles?
Well, that's
I've seen
another-
that on websites.
The
Or
thing-
hexing the really racist people who hijack part of the Asatru war.
Well, knitting poles are called scorn poles. The one we know about had like this rotting horse head on it, and basically it was a big sign essentially saying that this person is dishonorable and I want everyone to know it, and so I'm going to have this filthy thing pointed towards them and direct all that magic towards them. And again, it was done by a hero of the saga, so it is in some ways honorable, but I think it's honorable in how public it is. And how there was nothing secretive about it. It was so getting dirty in heathenry is if you're public about it. But I'm pretty sure in today's community, if someone actually tried to do an heathen poll, we just laugh at them because that's definitely a 1,000-year-old thing that should probably be left there.
As far as the magic that the Wiccans do, generally it's staying with the harm none aspect of it as much as possible. The one thing that with an attack, be it temporal or magical, is basically the chant that most children learned, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you send to me goes back and sticks to you, otherwise known as a mirror spell. So in effect, you're not doing it to them, they are doing it to themselves. On the other hand, I know a lot of people who the rule of 3, and if somebody tries to harm someone you love, you will go out of your way to protect those people. And you are willing to take the consequences of your action. I think a lot of the pagan paths, all of them, the majority of them, say that we take the consequences of our action. Now those who do dark magic for personal gain and riches, though, they're missing out on a lot because, in effect, the Christians have a saying for it, selling your soul to the devil, basically, that you are giving up a lot of your spirituality for just temporal goods. And the people who are unfortunately screwing up our country at the moment, who have sold their souls for personal gain, who have more riches than they possibly know what to do with, and yet don't want to give the little guy a break. These are guys who are poor.
So again, we don't have any magic in our tradition, so we talked about it, fighting dirty, and we're like, yeah, not cool. Pretty much sums it up. If you really need to reflect it back, like she was saying, a mirror spell, just don't start shit. Don't accept it, just turn it around. That being said, we deal with gods that other pantheons might consider dark or taboo. When I was in an ADF proto-grove in San Francisco, there was this guy, he'd only come to run ritual, and he wanted to do a ritual for Lucifer. And we said, well, that's way too controversial, especially for somebody who's been here once. And because ADF is a public group, you don't really want to go around being like, hey, ADF ritual for Lucifer. But in our grove, actually, Lucifer is very important to one of our members. And if he said, I want to do a ritual, I would be like, yeah, bring it on. Maybe it wouldn't be a public one, or maybe it would be, who knows. But there's not, and it's funny, we're talking about dark gods and he's the light bringer, but that's what we're thing. So we work with dark gods, but that doesn't mean dark and dirty and bad. They're not all the same thing.
As I did mention before, we do teach how to magically harm, but more importantly, when to do it. We don't do it willy-nilly, and we don't do it without cause. And it's also very, very important, no matter how crazy something gets, especially if someone's emotional about it, they shouldn't be doing any of it. Generally, they go to the rest of the group and go, hey, something happened, I'm all crazy about it, could you look into it? And they'll get like 4 or 5 people, they all kind of agree, yeah, this kind of went down this way. Even though the original person who thought they were wrong, they didn't think it went down that way, they usually will back off and go, okay, well, maybe I'm missing something. And so, but we do protect our own. And we do live in a world that, sometimes things happen, you have to do something about it. And it's very important to be able to protect yourself, protect the people you care about. And if you can't, then it gets sort of this extension of like, well, what's the point? We don't deal with dark deities per se. We don't do our magic with deities as a general rule. We acknowledge that they're out there and we sometimes talk to them and that kind of thing, but our magic is based around them. So we're not worried about it going that far out of control in that respect. Because anytime you ask a entity, whether it be an elemental, a deity, or whatever, to do something for you, it's their decision how they decide to go about doing it, how far they go with it, etc. If you're doing it yourself, then you're the ones in control as much as it can be. And we have a lot of disclaimers that are put in so that things don't go wild or anything like that. So it's very, very important that we know what's going on, know what's appropriate, and then handle it from there. So if someone attacks us, we basically do an escalation. I mean, like, oh, I just cast a little candle or something like that, we're not going to do anything. If someone's actually really causing real harm, then we'll reflect it back or, do something more amusing, like, amplify the spell effect and send it back towards them. Just different things of that nature. It depends on what's actually going on. But that's part of our tool set, as we can do these investigations a lot easier than some of the traditions may be able to. And that's why it's important to know that. How do you do it? When is it appropriate? Know the consequences of what's doing it. Because then you might even say, you know what? Yeah, you could do something back, but it's going to snowball something bigger. Are you going to be the bigger man and just sort of walk away before it just keeps on? There's no point in getting an endless circle of revenge going. There's lots of different options that we show. So it's not as simple as, oh, someone attacked me, we'll just attack back. We do protect our own, and we protect those we care about. But that is something that's actually very directly important to us, actually.
Well, we're the partiers. When you have a fight at a party, where does it go? Parking lot, out back.
Yes.
Our goats and the blunts. And
Exactly. I mean, the ritual is set up in a manner that you can't really do a direct magical attack. We don't do circles. You can get up and leave at any point in the ritual that you damn well please. We invite you to do that. We invite everybody in. We really don't care. If you were going to decide to do something like a magical attack, you're going to do it with a different format because that'd be the smart thing to do. Because if you did do it in the ritual, you'd be kind of stupid. And
Well, wouldn't everybody notice?
well,
I mean, that would be the kind
it's
of
not. It's the way it's set up. You're in the middle of basically a party.
Yeah.
The way the ritual is set up, you invite people in. You've got the 3 kindred, your ancestors.